Live from San Diego, this is the Fox 5 News at 6.
Joining us now to discuss more of today's inauguration and more specifically California's newly minted Vice President Kamala Harris is LA Times writer Seema Mehta, who has covered her extensively over the years. Seema, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, as I mentioned, you covered the vice president as an attorney general, a senator, as a presidential candidate. So as a close observer over the years, what do you think it is about her? What do you attribute her rise to the highest national office a woman has ever held in this country?
I mean, we always knew, any political observer in California knew that she was ambitious. And that's not surprising. Most of our statewide elected officials are ambitious. They want to get as high as they can possibly get. With Kamala Harris, she had deep ties with the Obama administration. She clearly played at the national level, even when she was AG. And then she became a senator, when the opportunity became available when Barbara Boxer retired. And then you saw, she had a short run in the Senate, but she had some really, some moments that really struck out, I think, to the public, like when she was questioning Brett Kavanaugh, or stuck out to Democrats in particular, like when she was questioning or grilling Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearings. And then, she ran for president by herself. She didn't get there. She dropped out before the first votes were cast. But she had some moments on a campaign trail during the the Democratic primary. For example, she really questioned Joe Biden hard during some of the Democratic debates about some of his past statements. So she wasn't a shrinking violet. She was obvious, she was in play. She attracted a lot of attention, if not necessarily a lot of support in the polls. But she also had a really great relationship with Joe Biden's late son, Beau, who's the Attorney General in Delaware. And I think that relationship really, I think that helped forge what we see now with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and their relationship, and how he was able to pick her and have faith in her.
Well, Vice President Harris will also be the deciding vote in a very divided Senate. What can you tell us about her approach to policy that you've witnessed over the years, or her decision-making process?
Well, I think when she was AG, she actually was viewed as very cautious. I think some of her supporters would argue that that's not a fair assessment, that, as the state's lead prosecutor, she cannot be as active or as vocal as she could if she was, say, a senator or a member of the legislature. But that was the reputation, that was the rap on her when she was AG. She made some controversial decisions then. But then, in the Senate, she was, she really, I think she came more into her own, or either she came more into her own, or she exposed more of who she was in terms of, really during some of these Senate hearings being a very vocal presence. And then I think in terms of her job as VP, I think, from everything we've read and everything we've heard, that she sees it as sort of how Joe Biden saw his job as President Obama's VP, which is to be a partner, to be to advocate for her views, but ultimately she is number two. But she also expects to be the last voice in the room with President Biden, as then Vice President Biden expected to be with President Obama. And I think that teamwork, that's going to be really interesting to see if that happens, or does she want to strike out on her own and pursue her own policy priorities, and if there are any policy differences between the two of them.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting dynamic to see it evolve. You wrote, Seema, an article from a really personal perspective that I read during the Georgia runoffs, when then Senator Perdue mispronounced and seemed to make fun of Kamala Harris's name. You essentially wrote that it hit home for you. As a woman of color, take us back to what that moment felt like and what you felt like today, watching her take the oath of office.
Right. I mean, and honestly, Sonia Sotomayor, when she was swearing newly elected, Vice President Harris, and she slightly mispronounced her name, and the Vice President kind of slyly corrected her. But during the Georgia runoff, I mean, Perdue didn't just mispronounce her name; he made fun of her name. He was like, Kamala, whatever, Oompa Loompa. I mean, he just grossly, in a way that, he's a smart man. He knows how to pronounce her name. They served on a Senate committee together. They have for years. I mean, he knew how to pronounce her name, and he was clearly mispronouncing it for the sake of the crowd, and they roared with laughter. And it just sort of struck, it just reminded me of when I was a kid, and, people mispronounce my name, or purposefully mispronounce my name, and just that sort of sinking feeling. It just it sort of came rushing back. So I put out this little tweet about it, and I got so many responses from people, from all different places, or people whose parents are from all different places all around the world. People who are South Asian, people who are East Asian, people from South America, people from Eastern Europe. I mean, just about how this was such a common feeling, especially thinking back to their childhoods. And so I ended up writing about it because I just thought it was an interesting moment. So looking today, I think, regardless of what your politics are, whether you agree with her or not, this is a groundbreaking day. We now have the first woman vice president. We have the first Black vice president. We have the first South Asian vice president. And, a friend of mine, she's my friend's Japanese American. Her husband is African American, and their daughter, she posted this picture of her, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, who's half Asian and half black, and she's pointing at the TV screen as Kamala Harris is taking the oath of office, and she's like, she looks like me. And I think that's one thing that's amazing, that you'll have this generation of children, whether it's minorities or women, that will be able to look at the White House, like to look at the upper echelons of power and see somebody who looks like them. And up until now, with the one exception of President Obama, we've had centuries of white men. So I think of these kids who are going to grow up never realizing that this isn't anything but normal.
All right. Well, representation matters. And thank you so much, Seema Mehta, for your perspective. And I've enjoyed reading your articles.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with less than an hour before President Joe Biden was sworn in, former President Trump pardoned one last person. He granted a pardon to Albert Pirro, the ex-husband of Fox News host Jeanine Pirro. Albert was convicted nearly 2 decades ago on 34 counts of conspiracy and tax evasion. The last-minute pardon comes after the former president granted clemency and pardons to more than 140 people last night. In that list, former San Diego Congressman Randy Cunningham, who served 8 years in prison for accepting bribes, was also pardoned.
The coronavirus pandemic was front and center at today's inauguration. In his first act as president, Joe Biden held a moment of silence for the more than 400,000 Americans who have died from COVID.
We've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all of those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be.
Biden acknowledged there is a lot of work ahead, especially in the fight against the virus.
Today, the county announced 1,720 new cases of coronavirus. That is the lowest single-day number of reported cases since early last month. 9% of the tests came back positive. 1,706 people are currently hospitalized with the virus, including 430 battling it in the ICU. 7 new outbreaks were reported, 65 new deaths from the virus today, raising that total to 2,174 San Diegans lost since last January. February 1st marks the beginning of Black History Month. Over the next few weeks, we will showcase some of the remarkable contributions African Americans have had on our country. And tonight, a look at a pioneer in science and technology. And tonight,